You're listening to the Energy is Love podcast.
Energy is love.
The Energy is the Love podcast.
The Energy is Love podcast.
Energy is love.
The Energy is Love podcast.
The podcast for the universe.
The Energy is Love podcast.
Fucking motorcycles. Motorcycles and hammers. And for people that are listening, we're going to have our neighbor in the backyard working on his deck. He's actually working on his patio. He's laying tiles, and not tiles, pavers. So periodically you may hear some noise in the background, and hopefully we'll be able to ignore it a little bit. But It is what it is.
It is what it is.
We have you have kids, don't you?
I do.
How old, or how many?
So I have four.
Wow.
Four. My wife and I both from previous marriages had two. So 2 and 2.
Same here.
Yeah.
Exactly the same. Our 14-year-old, who has been stuck home all summer with his parents, so he's really, really happy about it. But he has a tendency to say, "It is what it is."
It's what it is, and you never know.
That's like his tagline. It is what it is, or you never know. And it's usually, you never know when he says completely asinine things that have no possibility of being real. Like, because it's every day. It's not like we have to think hard, but I'm trying to think of one recently. Can you think of one?
No.
There's so many.
It is. It's like all the time. He'll come to, because he watches so much shit on YouTube. So then he'll be like, there's this parrot that, I don't remember the name of the parrot, but it lives to be 50 years old. So I think I'm going to get one of those. And I'm like, are you sure?
Right.
I'm pretty sure. I'm like, I don't think that's a thing, buddy. And he's like, yeah, it is. And then we'll sit there and argue back and forth. Hold on, I'm telling you a story.
Right.
And then at the end of it, he's like, you never know. I'm like, you're right, bud. You never fucking know, I guess. There could be a parrot that's 50 years old somewhere.
I think there is. I've heard of one where people have to write them in their wills because they live much longer than they were expecting.
You've been watching a lot of YouTube?
I have been. I'm going to Google that. It's going to be funny. The one example you use, he's completely right on.
I'm sure he is, right? Him and I got into an argument the other day. He watched some video and was bound and determined and convinced that if you just eat meat, so if you have a diet of just meat, you'll die. Because he watched something that somebody ate meat for 12 years and then died. And I'm sitting there and like, I'm not a proponent of like the carnivore diet. Have you heard of the carnivore diet? Right.
Yeah.
So I'm not like super adamant that it's a thing, but it is a thing. People do it. It helps a lot of people. Some people find it, everybody's different, obviously, in the way that we process food and everything like that. So I was trying to explain that to him. And he's like, no, if you eat meat, you die. And I'm like, I don't think so, but I think some people can do that. And he's like, I don't think so. I think they would die. And I'm like, I just have to stop because I get into this like arguing, pissing match with my 14-year-old and it doesn't work very well, but you never know, right?
You never know.
Yeah.
And it is what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sometimes.
I think that diet, you just won't poop for like 12 years. That's the diet.
How old are yours?
So I now have 2 that are 18,
Mm-hmm.
boy and a girl. And then we have the 2 younger ones with us. The younger one's just barely turning 13, and the medium one is 16 now. So it's all just hell.
Yeah.
Horrible.
Yes, it is.
Yes.
It's all girls.
All girls.
Well, there's the one boy who's older.
Yeah.
And 3 girls.
So we had 3 girls and 1 boy. And all of them, for the most part, are moved out with the exception of Asher still. He's the only one that's kind of left.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah. It was a lot of fun. You'll enjoy it. Well, you are
I do.
enjoying it, right? Yeah.
All day, every day.
All day.
No, it's good. It's good. It keeps you on your toes, for sure.
So, Corey, welcome to the podcast. This is it, by the way, we started. I don't know if you could tell or not. Thank you, first and foremost, for being willing to come and sit down and talk and be on the podcast. I appreciate it. I'm excited to talk to you for a bunch of different reasons, and I'm glad that you... what it was for the people that are listening. Steph and I have been interviewing and having a lot of people come on the podcast and talk about everything that's going on with racism and with police brutality and with, what else, babe?
I think that's been pretty much our whole thing.
Yeah, just
Black
everything.
Lives Matter.
Black Lives Matter, all those different things, because it's something that has changed drastically. I'm about to sneeze. Oh, goodness. Oh, goodness. Okay.
Like, which way are you going to aim that?
I don't know. So it's something that has become...
It's going to surprise you now.
It will surprise me. It has become very important to us. And we've been consuming a lot of information, whether it's movies and documentaries and podcasts and articles and everything like that, so that we can try to educate ourselves as best as we can. And in the process of doing that, I listened to a podcast, and we always butcher the guy's name, so we just need to like share it in the show notes or something like that so people can go and find it. And but I listened to this podcast with this guy. He's a black guy who's like a trauma therapist out of Minnesota. And he talked a lot about a lot of different stuff. But one of the things that he talked about was the idea that white people need to have these conversations. White people need to sit down and talk about all of this stuff in regards to race and racism and everything like that with other white people. Mm-hmm. Because, and I've heard it said in a bunch of different ways in a bunch of different kind of framework, but white people typically aren't used to or accustomed to having conversations about race or racism. It's something that we typically kind of shy away from and don't necessarily look at and don't necessarily address. And I was like, oh, that makes total sense. And so then it was like, we have to talk to a bunch of white people too. And so that's when I got on Facebook and posted that, and you were so kind to respond. And now you're here, and now we get to talk about shit. So I'm excited for that. I'm also excited to talk to you about your work and all sorts of different things about that as well. So before I go further and continue to ramble on forever and ever.
Are you going to point at me and say, what do you have to say? Because I don't right now. You're going to put me on the spot.
Now it's Stephanie's turn for her monologue. That saw. I'm going to snipe him.
It's, I don't.
Oops, see, he's done. Maybe not.
Yeah, no, that took up my monologue. I was prepared, but I can't work under these conditions. So
your agent, I'll call your agent.
There's going to be a complaint.
We'll pay double for this episode. Introduce yourself in the most generic way possible.
I would say I met you years ago when you were an officer for Twila City PD. I've worked EMS since 2008. Worked my way up through fire, became a fire captain. I'm a paramedic. Right now, my fun venture is I'm a flight medic up in Idaho. So that's how I pay the bills.
Yeah.
Yeah. Got the kids, got the house. We live out in South Rim. Love it.
Were you born and raised here in Utah?
I was actually born in Bountiful. And then right before school, so like right before kindergarten, we moved to Magna.
Okay.
So I did all my school years in Magna, in the ghetto. And then I moved out here when I started working on the ambulance.
Okay. And you've been, like you said, in EMS for 12 years? So yep. There's so many questions. I've actually in the past tried to talk to and convince some paramedics to come on the show and talk about stuff. And I could never convince anybody to. And I was shocked because I was like, it was very surprising to me. So before we go, what do you want to tackle first, Corey? Do you want to get into your work as a paramedic and talk about that stuff? Because I have a lot of questions. Or do you want to talk about our white privilege and our ability to sit here in this comfortable backyard in this super white state and talk about all of that stuff?
I would say fire away with your questions because they're probably interrelated. I would bet and imagine.
So, I feel like I hadn't taken a breath in the first couple of minutes of this show. So, like you said, we met when I was a cop, and you were a paramedic, and we would periodically run into each other out on calls and things like that. For people listening, it's different everywhere, but there's a lot of places that it's not. It's probably very, very similar. But in the agency that I worked in, the police department that I worked for, the vast majority of medical calls. So when somebody calls 911, I'm not looking at you guys because you guys both fucking know this. I feel silly, so I'm like looking at the table. But I think it helps to give some background. When somebody calls 911 and they only have a medical issue, whether they need assistance, somebody is passed out, whatever the case may be, they dispatch paramedics, obviously, and they will also dispatch police officers. So police officers respond to the medical. Now, depending upon the situation and the severity of it, police officers don't always respond. Excuse me. But a lot of times police officers will respond and do whatever, right? So that's how you and I would interact, is on those type of calls where we would just run into each other because we were both there or whatever the case may be. And Is that the same everywhere? Do you know? I know like in huge cities, obviously cops aren't going to medicals, but
Yeah, it's all depending on the area. I know a lot of like the Salt Lake Valley, they only come when they're requested.
yeah,
Unless it's something suspicious or something that warrants that. It's usually fire and EMS that requests law. But a lot of the smaller towns, especially if it's a volunteer EMS agency, you will always have the police first.
Yeah.
Because they're on duty in their car, ready to rock, and they're there fast. So it's not the same everywhere.
yeah.
So
So I get out of law enforcement, Corey, and suddenly over the course of several years, the compounding trauma of the experiences that I had as a police officer just like kicked me in the balls and knocked me down and fucked me up for years. And like that, I mean, that's just kind of like the reality. There's no real sugarcoating it. It sucked.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't until afterwards that I was out of it that I really started to realize the effects that it had on me. And yes, there were stresses from being a police officer and all of those different things. Most definitely, right? The violence, all those things,
mm-hmm.
those were stressful and hard. The shit that has stuck with me the most were things where paramedics would have been called, things where
Mm-hmm.
there was trauma and death. And those are the things that were the most difficult for me to deal with and process. And still to this day, I struggle with the memories that are there. And so that's why I wanted, back in the day, I wanted to have some paramedics come on and talk about the realities of what that's like. Because for me as a former police officer, the realities of being a police officer day in and day out carried its own weight and its own baggage, right? So if you're comfortable about sharing as much as you want, can you tell us what it's like to carry that baggage of being somebody that goes to, like, that's all your calls, right?
Yeah,
Most,
yeah.
Medicals were only some of the calls that I went to as a police officer,
Yeah.
but you went to all of the calls that are,
Yeah.
You weren't responding to, the barking dog or the domestic or the traffic stop.
Yeah. I know for me, it's very similar with what you're talking about, that baggage, and you don't realize in that moment what it's actually doing to you. I think we all, at least as males for the most part, you get into these jobs and you have this badge and there's this honor and there's the hero complex that kind of hits you. You wear that around, and I'm a hero now, whether you're a police officer or firefighter or paramedic, whatever. You kind of bring that hero mentality, and as you grind out the years, you kind of start to carry a lot of those things with you. And it wasn't always necessarily the very gory, dirty, bad stuff, but it was seeing what it did to the family that really brought it home for me. Some of the stuff wasn't gory at all, but because you've got a really small child and you see what that does to the family, that's the stuff that sticks with you. And you carry it. It doesn't ever go away. You just carry it. It's just kind of how you process it, I think. And that changes from person to person, I think.
How have you processed it?
In my age now, where I'm actually happily married, I like my wife, I like being home. I don't want to be gone at work all the time. I have like a newfound, not really respect, but a desire to be home. I don't want to pick up extra shifts all the time. I want to come home and hang out with my goats, and play with the dogs and be home and enjoy that. So I'm constantly looking for a way to make more by being gone less, I guess, is probably the best way to put it. Because I didn't get out of it, but I drive to Idaho Falls and fly, and I'm usually up there for 3 days and I come home. So it's kind of trading off a lot of that. We have very sick patients, but we don't fly as many patients, if that makes sense. It's more the critical care stuff. So I've kind of traded that out, the volume and the gore for the more critical stuff. It's very stressful, but it's more controlled. So,
when it comes to, you've had you said 2008, so we're coming on like 12, 13 years. Mm-hmm. How has the process, what did it look like in the beginning? What did it look like 5 years in? Do you know what I mean? As far as like your coping mechanisms and your ability to, because I think for me in the beginning, I was so unaware. You know what I mean? I wasn't even thinking about, this is a traumatic experience and it's probably going to affect me in some way, shape, or form. Yeah. I wasn't thinking about any of that shit, right?
No.
And then after a while, I realized how much I was disconnected from all experiences almost when it came to some of that stuff. Like if I went to a call or went to something that was really traumatic, I was so disconnected from it. I wasn't really, it's not to say I wasn't present, because you're present doing what you need to do in order to achieve whatever the purpose of, you being there is. Mm-hmm. But I'm not like, I don't know, for me, I was just disconnected and disassociated from those experiences.
Yeah, you have walls that go up, I think. And mm-hmm. I think we all kind of have done it in a different way. I've been there in one of these horrible situations, and you're kind of, hitting the elbows with the guys, and somebody's cracking jokes, and it's not a real joke. You're just kind of, that's your way of dealing with that exact moment. But it still stays with you. I found myself in really bad situations, and that's usually how it goes across for me, is a joke. It becomes a joke because you can't control it.
Yeah.
You're completely out of control.
Has there been stuff in your, outside of work, has there been stuff that you have been able to look at and see that, oh, maybe this is some of the effects of that?
Oh, definitely. In my family, there's definitely alcoholism. I saw myself going down that road, definitely. And that was kind of a turning point for me. It's a choice, you deal with as a cop and a medic, and you see these problems that stem from that. And you don't want to go down that road yourself, because you deal with these people. You might be taking them to jail or taking them to the hospital. So in seeing that, you going down that path yourself, you have to take a step back. And that's where I took a step back and started looking for different ways to do what I do. I still get to help people, but I'm not on the front lines anymore. I'm farther back, I guess. It's more buffered for me now.
Yeah.
So.
And how long have you been on the, what would I call it? The chopper, what do you guys call it?
It's both. It's just Air Rescue. So it's okay. Air Idaho Rescue. We're owned by a national company, but this company buys smaller air companies and kind of brings them all together. So we have both. Right now, primarily, I'm on the fixed wing, and then I'll bounce around and fill in at other bases when we need coverage.
Okay.
So, I started that in January, but before that, I had went from the EMS agency to a fire agency, worked my way up to captain, and when I started doing my flight medic training, I actually got on at the Army Depot as on the fire department, and I did that while I was finishing my flight stuff. So I've just kind of been doing the nomad thing, bouncing around.
Yeah.
Just kind of to get off the street. Because I think, when it's time to get off the street,
Yeah, but so many people don't, right? Not maybe they don't get off the street. They don't realize that they should transition, or that do you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Was there something that took place for you, or was it just a series of events, or eventually just time? Really?
I think for me, grinding it out and getting to the point where you're not enjoying it anymore, you're not passionate about it anymore, that third, fourth, fifth call throughout the night, on your second night you haven't slept, you're going back out to this frequent flyer's house for whatever, and it's not fun anymore, or you find yourself, you're not as passionate as you should be, because like EMS, you run a lot of calls, but there's only a few sprinkled in with all the stuff that happens all the time. There's only a few sprinkled in there where you actually get to make a difference. You actually get to save somebody. It's very rare. It just doesn't happen that much. There's a lot of abdominal pains or psychs or simple stuff. So when you need to be on your A game, you need to be on your A game. And I found myself like kind of not disinterested, but just jaded, very jaded. And that's where I kind of said, I need to transition. I need to grow too.
Can you describe that jaded feeling, or what that looked like?
I would say in a situation where you should have empathy for this person, you truly deep down your bones, you don't. It's that simple. And you should. And you look back and go, I really should have been more nice, or cared more. And you just didn't. You just don't. You're completely burned out.
Yeah, I can relate.
I don't know if that rings true with you too. But...
It does ring true. It rings true for you too, babe. Like, I'm sure, right? I don't know if you realize Steph was a dispatch. And so, I mean, it's the same thing where I think that's a good way to put it, right? You should have empathy for the experience or for the moment or just for the fucking human being that you're dealing with. And you don't. You're just like, God, this is a waste of my fucking time. This is, keeping me from what I want to be doing right now or what I was doing before I had to come and do this thing. And it's so annoying and frustrating. And I think that is one of the big issues. We've been talking a lot lately about law enforcement, obviously, because I have that experience. But I think that's one of the big issues that they're facing with is they do get to that point where their empathy is gone. And that's why they're assholes. That's why they're viewed the way that they're viewed. That's why they probably do some of the things that they do and some of the violence that we see and some of the police brutality that we see. It makes sense if you're looking at, well, it doesn't always make sense, but you can understand a portion of it if you're thinking about it from the perspective of somebody who has lost the ability to truly be empathetic for a person and for an experience and for a moment. And you see that a lot where, I can sit and watch. Right now, there's so many things that you can actually watch right now that are taking place like all the time, and all the videos are coming out more and more and more, even though it's been prevalent for years and years and years. But that's what I think. I think of these officers who are really good people who, got into the profession with good intentions and have good hearts and probably families and all sorts of different things. And they've just lost that deep connection to their heart and to their empathy and their ability to, be in those experiences and feel those things. And that sucks. Like, I wish there was a fix for that. I don't know. For me, it's like we got to tear it all down and then build it back up from the ground up. Because, I don't know.
Well, and I feel bad for like most of the officers out there, because working with the cops and seeing the human side and knowing that they're all human and they're really good people, knowing how these things have played out, and this isn't justifying anything, but it's just they're between a really big rock and a really hard place. When you start fearing for your retirement and your livelihood based on your actions, it breeds this mentality that you just will go hands off. Then I will just let this person do whatever they want because I don't want to get sued. I don't want to get fired. Especially if you're somebody that's got 20 years in, you just want to retire. That's a scary thing, very scary. Are you
at the point where you're going to, it sounds like you've kind of found a sweet gig that works for you and you kind of like the flow of it, but how much longer do you think you're going to be in EMS and doing these things?
I think for me, my wife is an ER nurse. I don't know if you knew that. You probably ran
I remember her.
And she's finishing her master's to be a nurse practitioner. And I think when she's done, I'm going to go to nursing school. Because I think I could do a lot of good working in an ER somewhere. Just because I know it. It is a lot of work. I know what she does. I've been around it. But it kind of does get you off the street and, in a controlled environment.
Yeah.
A lot. I don't want to say it's not stressful. It's just a different kind of stress. I think for me would be more manageable.
Yeah.
For sure.
Corey, I'm sitting here thinking about the cumulative weight of all of this stuff. And what are you doing to mitigate it? What are you doing to, for me, it's like, fuck, I don't have to do it anymore. So it's such a relief. Steph and I sit here and we're like, so glad I'm not a cop anymore. So glad I don't have to do any of that shit anymore, especially right now. Right. It would be a nightmare.
Oh.
And, what do you do to manage and cope and continue to hold on to your empathetic side and hold on to who you really are, I think, as opposed to this, cold-hearted guy that doesn't give a shit about stuff?
It came back. I think getting off of the street and not being in that situation was most of it. And it's a lot easier for me now when I go in to get a patient because I'm not flying 10 patients in a 24-hour period. There's not that volume. So you do care. I find myself very deeply invested in the family and making sure they have a good experience. It's not all just critical dying people. There's also people that need to go wherever they're going just because of distance. So you do get a time to kind of connect. I spend a lot of time fishing. I love fishing because for me, I'm out, I'm away, it's calm. The family always goes. We go out to Rainbow a lot because it's close, but We try to go on a lot of vacations. And I try really hard to be involved with the kids when I can. That's kind of more my focus is just being more accessible, more around. I think a lot of us, when you get into fire and EMS and police, those jobs will eat you up. They will swallow you whole. And I'm not sure if it's the same way for dispatch. I would imagine it is. If somebody calls in, hey, can you come in? Police work, hey, can you hang out late and do this or that? Come to this training, come to that training. It's just this, it's overwhelming. And if you let it, these jobs will eat you alive. And I think that was most of it for me, is I let that happen to a certain degree. You know, a lot of training, a lot of classes. I was flying out of state for stuff. And finally it's just like, enough's enough, you know.
I think it does eat you alive. I think that it does become, it becomes like the total, it becomes everything, right? It becomes not just when you're on duty, but when you're off, it just literally becomes your way of life. And I think that's another thing that they could change. I think they could very much, because there's almost like, at least for police officers, there's almost like a level of pride involved in that, where you're like, I'm always a cop, right? Then you have this level of like it's just this prideful feeling of like, I have this responsibility and I'm always going to have that responsibility. Yeah. Even when I'm, you know, sitting at home or out with my family or whatever the case may be. It's like at any given moment, I'm going to have to put on
your cape,
put on my cape and jump into action and save, you know, the day as a police officer. And so it's this sense of pride that you feel. And then then it's so easy to lose yourself in it. Like you said, it's so easy to get lost in that space of, it just suddenly becomes everything you eat, breathe, and sleep. And that's something I think that they could change drastically. And by they, I mean like
the actual system that works.
Exactly. Yeah. Right. The whole thing, because if we started to train people differently and that mentality shifted and changed to where it was like, oh, maybe you didn't have to work so many shifts. Maybe, you know, there wasn't overtime for police officers. That just wasn't, limit it. Right? Yeah. There just wasn't a fucking thing where, you know, and you actually had some sort of like benefits if you were involved with things that had nothing to do with police work or being a police officer. I don't know. I'm just brainstorming. I want to transition though into our whiteness, babe. But before we do, is there anything that you want to ask or anything that came up for you?
You really need to come up with a different way to ask that. You're like, all right, now it's your turn. Do you have anything of value here? What would that different training look like? Because I feel like training, not necessarily the training, but how all of that living, breathing, because I feel like there's a really big aspect where it is important to be completely, like, what you're doing isn't, you know, it's data entry. You have to have, everything's changing all the time. So you constantly have to be changing and learning and going through different training, seeing it from different views. So it's like, how does that look different? Because it kind of feels like, at least when you're in it, that there really is no room for anything else. Because if you don't stay on your game, you're going to fall behind. And if you fall behind, it's not like, oh, here's a workload that I have to catch up on. It's, oh, that's somebody's life. So you can't fall behind that. So what does that, how would you see that difference?
The only thing and I've never done the academy. I don't know how post is, but I can imagine there being a much bigger portion or bigger emphasis on conflict resolution. I mean, and EMS, police, most of our day is you're just sitting here talking to somebody. That's your whole day. You might, hey, stop yelling at your neighbor for cutting tiles. You know, don't fight. Calm down. You know, you're a good person. Don't do something stupid. It's conflict resolution, and there's people who have no interest in that. They've got their cape on. They're ready to kick ass and take names. And I think there's a different emphasis on that. Maybe that's kind of the change that needs to happen. Part of it.
I agree. I'm just trying to see, just like ideas, because I'm completely on board with that. And for EMS and first responders across the board. But then it sits back with, you have like, how? Yeah. How?
For me, baby, I think it's like, I'm sure that you can relate as a paramedic. There's so many things that police officers went to that they should just never go to. So we can shift and change the perspective on what is the role and the responsibility of all of these different aspects of first responders, right? I'm sure as a paramedic, there was plenty of shit that you guys went to that there was absolutely no reason for you to go to, right?
Mm-hmm.
Zero fucking reason for you guys to get the ambulance and drive there.
Mm-hmm.
And there was probably, like, what would be a common one that you would go to all the time that really there just wasn't a reason for paramedics to go?
I would say a common one is the domestic dispute. There's a lot of arguing. It's heated. And then we're there just to check somebody out.
Mm-hmm.
And that usually, we're like gas on the fire. When we can walk in, it's like, oh, no. and it's really a law thing.
It's liability. It's
and
covering
it's
your
liability.
ass.
It's cover your butt.
Yeah.
What if he or she has a boo-boo? You didn't report it. They weren't cleared. But it goes the other way with law too. we would have law there, and they're sitting here like looking at us like, what do you want? And I'm like, I don't know. I feel better with you standing here, bro. Like, we're pals. You're my safety buddy.
Yeah.
That's it, you know.
What about, I think for me too, one of the other big things that we could just completely take off the plate for people and design some other new system, like heavily design some other new system to take care of this issue. It's all the mental health things, right? I mean, how many calls did you go on where somebody had zero medical, physical issue, right? They're not losing their life. They're not bleeding, there's nothing physically wrong with them. It's all just strictly mental health. So they're having some sort of psychotic break or some sort of schizophrenic episode, right? Paramedics don't need to help that person. It's not to say that you can't.
No,
but
usually we clog up these ERs.
With that stuff.
With this type of stuff, which now we're wasting more people's time and money clogging up that system. So it would be a different, a new system meant to catch these things.
Yeah.
And I don't know what that would look like. We've seen counselors that come out, but then when they meet up with law enforcement, they want to pink sheet somebody, and then they turn right around and call the ambulance to take them to the hospital. So it just takes a process and adds 3 more steps. It doesn't solve any real problems.
And it doesn't help the person either.
No, not at all.
Pink sheeting, you mentioned pink sheeting, people that are listening and watching. I always forget there's a camera at my back. People are watching all the time. It's just like when you're a cop, people are always watching you, recording you. Pink sheeting is when you involuntarily commit somebody. So if somebody is having some sort of episode or something involving their safety and or the safety of others, you can basically snag them off the street or out of their house and involuntarily commit them to essentially the system for a determined amount of time. What is it, 2 days or something?
I think it initially lists at 72 hours, but that's always open to interpretation by the next physician, the next care provider. They can always extend it. They typically never make it shorter, but it can be extended. Yeah, if they feel you're a threat.
See, that whole... We're going to get lost in these rabbit holes because that process, that's for me, I think that's one thing that we could do, babe, is design a system to help the people that are mentally ill and that reach out and need help in the moment. Because what we're doing right now isn't helping those people. Yeah. Cops don't help them. Paramedics don't help them. When they go down to the ER, that doesn't help them, right?
No.
It's just getting them shoved into a system of checks and balances and really everybody just covering their ass. The reason the police officers pink sheet somebody is because if we turn around and leave and they kill themselves, now we're liable. The reason that we have the paramedics transport them to is because now if suddenly they have some sort of cardiac arrest in the back of my patrol car, then now I'm liable or the department's liable. And so everybody just keeps passing the buck around and around and around. And the person that actually needs fucking help isn't getting help at all.
No.
And that's asinine. I mean, that's just a joke.
Well, I know you've heard this at 3 a.m. at somebody's house. Either you go with them or you go with me in the cop car. And are we really helping people?
Yeah, we're not.
We're not. We're, like you said, we're passing that buck. That's an interesting idea. I don't know. I've worked in it for 12 years, and I can't think of a system to catch those people, because those people get lost. I mean, with the road home, when they were tearing that down and splitting up all the shelters in Salt Lake, most of those people that are in there because of mental health problems. They can't hold down a job. They can't function in society. That's why they go lay at the park all day or do whatever they're doing, or it's drugs.
Yeah, and then you have the drug, the drug addiction or the drug habit stemming because of the mental illness. It's just a really, I mean, this is my big soapbox, Corey, and it's been this way for a really, really long time because I saw it so in depth. Like, I saw the face of it in law enforcement, was how big of an issue this country has with mental health, and how much we all suffer from it, how much we all experience it, and how much none of us fucking deal with it, talk about it, or process it in any way, shape, or form. And so all of these issues that we're talking about now and all these things that we're kind of addressing or even just brainstorming about, for me, it always comes back down to mental health. And for me, the fix is, like, from the get-go, it's not, let's come up with some sort of like response team to help with mental health issues. When somebody calls 911, let's have a huge counseling center that's like the community center in the town that is free for everybody. There's no like sliding scale. There's no copay. There's no, do you have insurance? Do you not? Let's see if Medicaid covers this or no, it's just fucking free. 100% free to walk in the door and get help. It's 100% free to come in and get counseling and to get therapy. And we start to normalize it. So it's no longer a stigma attached to it. There's no longer something that people don't want to talk about. It just becomes the norm where you go and talk to your therapist or your counselor on a regular basis and get help, and everybody does it. Yeah. So our kids, like we take our kids when they're babies, right? I mean, how many times do you take your kids to the fucking doctor in the first 6 years of their life to get shots and get checks up? All this shit, right? We need to take them to therapists so that it becomes normalized, so that every single year they're going to get their checkup with their counselor or with their therapist. And then it just continues on throughout their life so that it becomes a normal thing in all walks of life for everybody to go and get therapy. And then we start to see some of these systemic issues with mental health and the lack of help for these people.
Yeah. I think you'd see less school shootings.
For sure.
I mean, it's scary, but it's true.
It's less true. School shootings, less fucking shitty cops, right? Because that's the other thing is cops can't get fucking help for their mental health issues because it just doesn't exist for police officers. And if you reach out and try to get it, then you have the stigma attached to you that you're not fit for duty and you potentially are going to get fired and lose your job.
Lose your retirement.
All sorts of different shit, right?
For sure.
But if suddenly it was just like, oh, hey, yeah, you should probably go talk to the counselor today. Okay. And then you just take the day off and go talk to the fucking counselor because you have a really hard job. Same thing for paramedics.
How do you get admin out of that loop? Because
to take away the stigma, or what do you mean?
There's that part of where if you go in, it gets reported, or if they have to send you to therapy for some reason, then they get to know what happens in the therapy session. And if you have if something really bothers you and you're a little messed up and you need to be completely honest, because how else are you going to get help if you can't work through it? How do you keep admin out of it? How do you keep the higher ups and what is going on in that session out? Because I know at first
I don't know, because they want their finger in, like you said, it's CYA across the board. Everybody's all about cover your ass. And that's why they are the way they are. If you're unfit, right off the bat. Either you'll lose your post cert or you'll at least be on admin time till they figure out what they want to do. And that's a scary thing if you have a mortgage and you've got kids and you've got life, for anybody. And who knows how far that'll follow you. Yeah. What if it follows you to your next job? Or the next job out of that.
I think go ahead, Ben.
If they were just complete from the get-go, if it was not something, obviously, the standard, if you have a plan to kill yourself or somebody else and there's something to be said. But if your thoughts are just dark because something is messing you up, if the fear of it being reported and you being declared unfit for duty was gone, then how many people are going to go earlier before it's that level and talk and have so much of that relieved off of their, the numbers are going to go down with that. If you have the ability to work through it without being afraid until you snap.
Well, imagine a world, because you're talking kind of about law enforcement at this point, right?
I'm talking across the board with it.
Well, military is the same way.
Okay. Military. Yeah. Yes. So military, law enforcement, EMS, everything. Firefighters,
dispatchers,
all of it. Dispatchers. Yeah. All of it.
Yeah, well, I think it starts with the training and the culture that you build. I'm not sure how it is in post, but I know there's a lot of different cultures where when you're in your training, you don't be the wuss. You don't, there's that blue line and you don't cross it, or we have each other's back and that kind of stuff. But it breeds that. Like, you can't be the wink link. You need to be you need to be stronger. You don't ever admit that that messed you up. So dealing with that first at the beginning sets the groundwork to move forward with the people of the future. The people you're training right now are going to be your 20-year veterans. What are they going to be teaching the next guy? You know, what were you taught from the people that have been doing it for 15, 20 years? You know,
not good stuff.
What was I taught? You know, the same thing. Like it's just, that's always passed down. And that's the only way you grow, is to wipe that slate clean, learn from the crap that's going on, and try to make it better.
I imagine that world, babe, where it has nothing to do with your job. So I don't need to go talk to the therapist or counselor that's connected with the department. I just go to that fucking free counseling center that is, you know, in my town, and go talk to the counselor that I've been seeing since I was 5 years old. And they just help me through my shit because they know me already.
Yeah.
So it has nothing to do with my job, right? And there's no responsibility for anybody to report anything because it's just normal. You know what I mean? And you can talk about it normally. Like, hey, I'm having a really hard time with stuff. So they're like, oh, well, you should go talk to your counselor. Oh, yeah, I forgot. I need to set up an appointment and go talk to my counselor. And then it's all fucking normal. There's no fear of anything because it's like, oh, we're all human. We all experience these things, especially trauma, right?
Yeah.
Trauma affects us all differently. But I think 100% without a doubt, we can all agree that trauma affects us.
Mm-hmm.
It affects us all differently, but it affects us. And the idea that it doesn't, or that you're going to be immune to it, or that somehow you're not going to have some shit stuck to you because of the trauma, it's such a fucking misnomer. And it's just pretend, right? Everybody's trying to pretend that that's not the case.
Or they bring it home.
Yeah.
And we didn't talk about that, like that effect of your job swallowing you up. What effect it has on your wife or husband.
Mm-hmm.
When you're gone all the time. You know, you missed the kid's birthday, you missed Christmas, you missed Thanksgiving, you were always at work. That's more important than our family. That's what it always ties to. And until you break that, it's like, it's rough out west, you know? We
got to fix it. I think they should call us. Maybe we'll just send this to the people in charge and they'll listen. And
this is your how-to.
This is
now I'm going to go get my list because I actually have some really good ideas for them.
Get it done.
So let's talk about our whiteness. I've been having a hard time thinking. I was thinking about this throughout today, and what we were going to talk about and how to talk about it. And it's like anything else when we've had some of these guests come on the show that are black and these people of color that we've been talking to. It's hard to have conversations with them and say things because you don't want to offend anybody and you don't want to upset anybody. But at the same time, I think they're important conversations to have. So if we sit and think about this moment, and we'll try to do our best to pretend that we're not talking into microphones and we're on a podcast, but let's try to talk about this topic of racism and our quote unquote white privilege. I say it that way because I have a hard time with that. That's still something that's hard for me to swallow, even though I totally acknowledge the fact that I have it and that I have benefited from the fact that I'm white in this country. But let's talk about it as best as we can. What do you guys think? Are we all on board?
It's a huge topic. And I think it's very dependent on not only where you are geographically in the country, but it's socioeconomic. It's money. It's where you come from, like specifically. You come from a really crappy neighborhood, whether you're black or white, you do not have very many options. Same thing. You can be black or white here in Utah, and you might have more options. So it depends on where you're at in the country, I think, that level of white privilege, like what that can be defined as.
I agree. I think that's a factor. I think that's definitely a thing, right? Like you said, it depends on where you come from and kind of your background and where you grow up and things like that. But I think, like for me, I've really shifted in the way that I've looked at it and realized that just the mere fact that I'm white gives me a head start, even if I don't want to acknowledge it or see it or recognize it. Like we sit here and we record this podcast in our backyard, right? We have a nice house with like a really nice yard, and we live in a really safe neighborhood. And I think I am ignorant to think that everybody could have this same experience, because the truth is, I don't think they can right now in the country that we live in because of the way that people treat and view black people. And that sucks. Like, that pisses me off. That's frustrating, because I think everybody should obviously have the ability and the right and the opportunity, but I don't think they do. And I think it's more than just that, you know, the neighborhood that you grew up in, or if you grew up poor. I mean, I grew up poor, right? And I think it's more than just that. And I think that's part of, like, the white privilege part of this, and white ignorance is another thing that I think we have. And by we, I mean Stephanie and I don't want to speak for you, but I think that's another aspect of it too, where we think that it is just one or two of these things, and it really doesn't have anything to do with the fact that we brought fucking slaves over here 400 years ago.
I think what you're describing is a symptom of a much bigger puzzle, a much bigger picture. There's so many things that factor in. The drug wars, the way drug charges are prosecuted in this country, they've primarily been geared towards African Americans. The way that you are actually charged, the amount of time that you serve based on how much you carry, was meant to hit those slums and enslave people. And when you live in a society that has privatized incarceration for profit, it only makes sense to incarcerate more people. And that's not talking about the black or the white side. That's just simply talking about the way this is all kind of shaking out over time. I think it's a huge problem, but what we're talking about is a symptom of a bigger problem. I think the bigger problem we have is money. It really is. I think we bought into a great big pyramid scheme. We did. And we're seeing the effects of it. Like, our monetary system is based on just perpetual growth. It has to grow, or else it will collapse. And we're finally seeing a time in our lifetimes where we're facing that. And it scares the shit out of people. Yeah. It really does.
I agree completely that I think money is a component. And what part of this do you think, like, in your mind, Corey, do you see race as the first and foremost issue, and then here comes all of these other issues along the way? Or do you feel like race and racism used to be an issue and it's not so much anymore, and now it's all these other problems that have come along the way?
I think we have a global economy with a very small group of people that have the power and the wealth, and they're going to keep it that way. And the way they keep all of us, the middle class, the lower class, everyone else who doesn't have the money, the way they keep us on this hamster wheel is to keep us bickering with ourselves. So we don't wake up and go, why are we doing this? Why do you have so much and everyone else has so little? We have the resources on this planet for everybody to have clean water, hospitals, schools, counseling, like you were just saying. Those are realities. The physical things it takes to do this, we could do it on a global scale, but we don't because of profit. You hold up a dollar bill, it's just a piece of paper, but we are ingrained from birth that it has some sort of value, and it doesn't. When you look at greed is to take from you to give it to me because I want it more. We don't ever look at, well, everybody deserves clean drinking water. Let's just do it. Let's grow food right where we are, instead of transporting it intercontinental, wasting all these resources. So I see a lot of the social media stuff going on. It's gun rights. Either you're a gun owner or you hate guns, but we got to fight about it. Either you want an abortion or you should never have one. Either way, you guys need to fight about it. Either you're a Democrat or you're a Republican. Either way, I want you guys to fight about that with each other. And right now, if you watch all the social media, it's all about throwing more gas on this racial fire. And the more you pay attention to this, and I'm not saying that it is an issue, I'm saying the more we focus onto just this and not the bigger picture, we're doing exactly what the people that have all the money and all the power want us to do. We're sitting here bickering about it instead of organizing and changing. Long-winded answer.
No, it's good. I like your perspective. I like the ideas behind it. This was one of the things that I struggled with when I thought about, because we thought about who could we have come on and talk about race and stuff. And I don't want to bring people on the podcast and then have it be some sort of like argument.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what I mean? I'm not trying to convince anybody of anything. At the end of the day, the thing that we've done with this podcast is really just, we like the idea that people that listen all over the place, right? Because we have listeners all over the world, and something they listen to and hear on this episode sparks something in them, and they think about it afterwards. Yeah. Whether they think about it for the rest of the day or for the next week or whatever the case may be, it just sparks some different thoughts and some different ideas. And in the last month and a half, I have shifted so much of what I thought because of ideas that were sparked inside of me and that I had to really start to look at and sit with and hold on to. And I agree 100% when it comes to money. And I think that it is a very broken system. I think that I don't think that there is some big conglomeration of white men that are secretly meeting and controlling the world economy and structuring everything in such a way so that they and their friends get richer and then everybody else gets poorer. I think that there's a bunch of fucking individual white men
Mm-hmm.
that are doing that on their own, and periodically they'll meet and hang out. But
yeah, I think they just mingle.
Yeah, I don't think there's some big
Yeah.
conspiracy or anything like that. I think it's just the dynamic. I mean, it's literally what has been taking place over the course of history throughout time, right? Eventually somebody gets more than the next person, and they hold on to that, and they want more because it gives them more. It gives them more ability to originally take care of who they love, right? Originally, if I have more money, I'm able to feed my family. I'm able to shelter them better. I'm able to take care of them more. And now it's just, exploded into the space that it is today. But specifically in our country and what we face and deal with in our country, I think black people are just fucked. Like, plain and simple.
I would agree.
And I think I think slavery was a huge component of slavery was money, was that thing that you're talking about where the rich are trying to make sure that they get more and people get less, right? I mean, we didn't bring slaves over here to hang out and become friends with them.
No.
We brought them over here to fucking work so that white people could make more money.
It's a workforce. But and I'm not saying that it's not what you're saying with black people in this country being very much fucked. That's the truth. But when you talk about slavery, it's changed. We still have slavery.
Mm-hmm.
It's just changed for our time. You had property owners. They bought slaves. They bought their workforce. They housed them. They provided health care because they don't want their slaves to die. That was money. That's their investment. And that's how they keep making more money, still more money. And then as that evolves out of slavery, you have to turn them loose. Well, now what do? It's cheaper to force people to work for you and provide their own house, their own health care, their own everything, but you're still forced to work. You still have to come to work. And that's that change, I think, in slavery is people think that it went away. It just morphed. As a species, you're not meant to sit behind a computer screen in a cubicle for 10 hours a day. You're just not. It's not natural.
Yeah.
And that's where I look at with money tying into all these different things. I think it all comes down to money. All these different things. The root of it. I mean, the evolution, yes, slaves were brought over, hands down. We know that. And then, I mean, there's still places in the South you go, and they're still segregated. There's segregated buses and schools, and it's just not talked about.
Yeah, and I'm not all right with that.
No, not at all.
Like, for me, as a white guy that lives here in Utah, like, I'm not all right with it. I think it not only does it suck, I think it just needs to change.
Mm-hmm.
I think it just needs to stop.
Definitely. But I think there's a lot of problems for a lot of different colored people and for women too. So for me to pick one fight, for me, it's hard to say. Where do you put that energy? How do you decide? Right now it's very heated because of all of the events that are going on right now. There's still a lot of battles going on for women's rights, reproductive rights. Huge right now. There's a lot of stuff going on. In the world I see, what I would hope is you don't have any more different color problems. You just have human problems. Like, you should have that opportunity to go to college, to finish school, to not be hooked on drugs, you know, or have to sell drugs to feed your baby, or to be threatened with jail, you know, or to anytime you get pulled over by the cops or worry if you're going to get proned out on the hood. That's a scary thing. I've been on the other side of that, and it's scary.
Yeah.
You know, so the only answer I see, and I don't know how a system would work other than a resource-based economy to get rid of that part of that puzzle, is the monetary side, the greed side. Other than that, I don't know that there's just one answer to peg one of these things, because you can focus on the one thing, but you've got 5 other things popping up, you know.
I can see that to a point. I agree with the many different races, many different colors, and the setbacks that has faced women. Obviously, I'm familiar with that. But I can't... I'm probably misunderstanding. But it kind of seems like, well, it's also big. There's so many. Where do I start? So I'm just going to just not fight. And that kind of goes to your, like, you've got us pegged against each other. We're fighting. And I can see that if we're distracted fighting. However, if we're not fighting at this point, and I hate that it's a fight. I hate,
for sure.
But if we're not fighting, then the people that are in charge, then it's going to turn into a conformity.
For sure.
So I'm having a hard time understanding. I think I missed your point then.
So I think what I would say is, yes, we do need to reform all of the police.
Okay.
All the police systems, because they are geared towards, especially depending on where you are in the country, very specifically on like racial profiling. You pull over a black male, guess what? It's on, you know. It's just the way it is. You need to be scared. You've got like vengeance, a badge, and a gun in some places where people use that. And I definitely agree that there's definitely racism all over in the country, for sure. But in this fight, what makes this fight any more noble than all of the kids that grew up gay and made fun of and bullied, or they're trans, or they're lesbian? What makes this fight any more important than their fight? That's where I have a battle is.
Okay.
And it's not that I'm saying we shouldn't fight these battles.
Okay.
It's to say, how do you pick? How do you pick what you're going to get behind? Do we get behind all of them?
Why not?
Yeah. But what does that actually mean for me on a day-to-day? Am I out marching? Am I out writing my Congress? You know what I'm saying? I'm saying the physical fight. I can say I'm behind you, and I can like something on Facebook all day long, but does that really make any change? Are you really changing something?
Well, what does it mean for you?
For me, right here,
us
talking about it, that is what can help change. That's that grassroots. You're trying to help open people's eyes. You're hoping that somebody will hear this that has never been exposed to any of this stuff. They might share it with a friend. Like, listen to this. Maybe do some of your own research. Look up some of this stuff and grow from there. It's growing that idea that you can talk to somebody about something and not fight. It's not an argument, you know? So it's not to downplay what's going on with race in the country. That's not it. Because I am completely behind all the people standing up and protesting. I'm not all for rioting, but I am all for protesting, for sure. But I also am behind all the gay rights advocates, all of these guys. I'm behind women's rights, you know, and it's hard to see a world where all of that stuff is equal. All these little fights that we have going on, like simultaneously. It's a weird time in human history right now. There's a lot going on, for sure.
There is a lot.
I mean, does that help explain kind of what I was saying?
Yeah, I'm seeing a little differently now.
I'm not saying that one is not important. I'm saying for us looking at, if you looked at anybody's feed on Facebook, how many different things can you count that you can write down of things that people are pissed off about? There's a lot.
Yeah, we got Black Lives Matter. We got kids in cages down on the border. We got Me Too movement and women's rights. We got, June was Gay Pride Month. We got all the issues that they face and deal with. At some point, we got the poor white man that has been, ruling everything from day one, who is also getting his balls kicked in right now.
All the veterans.
Veterans, right? All the good police officers that are out there right now. there are countless fucking issues, like you say. And I think, from my understanding, from what I've seen, because like that argument oftentimes of Black Lives Matter and then followed up with all lives matter. And it's like, well, no shit, all lives matter.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody's not saying all lives don't matter. I think that what they're saying at this point in time is like, let's just acknowledge the fact that Black lives matter, period. Like, that's it. They just matter. We don't need to go further than that at this point in time, at least in the conversations and at least in the context. The idea that we have a large portion of people in this country, mainly white people, and it's not just all white people. You see people of color as well, but arguing the fact that, can we just all get on the same page and acknowledge the fact that these people matter? And I think that's the issue. And you're right. It goes to women, right? Women have been, I mean, fuck, you know, from the dawn of time, women have been persecuted and everything else, you know, you name it. They've had to deal with it and experience it, and they still do.
And still do.
And I think maybe this whole movement, maybe this whole thing that's taking place right now, because I've heard a lot of people talk about how, I mean, the fact that they are protesting and marching and doing all sorts of different acknowledgments of what's taking place in this country, but they're doing it all over the world is different, right? When they had the civil rights movement back in the 60s, you didn't see people marching in solidarity in New Zealand.
Yeah.
And now we see that in New Zealand. We see it in every fucking continent across this, you know, the world. I think that's one of the big key differences. But maybe the Black Lives Matter movement, maybe what's taking place right now with Black people and with racism in this country is the beginning portion where they have had, I don't even want to say the longest running fight, because who, you know, it's not a matter of who's been persecuted and, you know, exploited, and
it's not the persecution Olympics.
Right. It's not who can stand the tallest on their chair and say, I have been, you know, my race or my creed or my sexual orientation or my sex has been the one that has been persecuted. I think women would probably win that fight because men have been fucking them up since the dawn of time. Yeah. But maybe this is the part that is the catalyst for all these different things to come together and change, right? Because you see gay and lesbian people marching in solidarity with Black Lives Matter. You see all the other races that, you know, because of course we have Mexicans in this country that are slave labor to a certain extent, right? Oh, yeah. They're definitely getting a paycheck, but it's not fucking a paycheck. We have Native Americans that still are fucked in this country. We have all these different things, but everybody is coming together under this one thing and saying, okay, enough is enough. Let's start the change now. And let's see what that looks like moving forward. Because I agree, there are so many different parts of it. There are so many different layers. And it's not just one battle. It's not just one fight. And it's not just one issue. There are many, many fucking issues. And I don't know what the fucking fix is. I don't know where we start. Well, I like the idea that these conversations help, but I don't even know if they do. I think
that's what you'll see. And that's what I hope that we will see in our lifetimes. In 15 years, you'll be talking about it, that you got to see this happen, where all these different movements, these people that actually have common ground come together. Because that's when you're going to see real change. If you take all of these people who have all these different versions of persecution, come together and work towards the same goal for each other, that's a lot of voters. And that scares people when you can organize in that kind of way for change, you know. And I mean, there's always revamping with the police, but really it's a cultural thing. Like you said, it's totally a cultural thing. If you care more about the fact that you're in your own neighborhood as a cop dealing with your neighbors and your friends and family, you're going to treat them better. You know, if you look down on these people because they're different color than you or whatever, you treat them like garbage. So I would love to see these movements all come together. I think that is the way you're going to see real change get affected.
Go ahead, babe. We both took a sigh at the same time.
I'm seeing that. And I think that's growing. You have different communities that are getting together and supporting. And right now, we are very, very, very strongly rallying behind Black Lives Matter. But you are also seeing the outcry for what's happening with ICE, what's happening with the people in cages and the families being separated. You had June Pride or Gay Pride during June. And instead of like, oh, well, this is our time. That was still something they were honoring themselves, but they were throwing their support behind Black Lives Matter. So you're seeing different areas where they are all coming together. And it seems the conformity where they're all coming together is against no more hate. It's like everybody, like, they're trying to level the playing fields.
Yeah.
They're screaming all lives matter on this side. And they're like, that's what we're trying to do.
Yeah.
You know, so I feel like it's happening.
Yeah.
People are coming together.
Yeah. And it's hard to see it here where we are specifically, just because I think it would be a completely different ball game if we were in Manhattan, if we were in Atlanta, if we were in a lot of different places in the country that are more ethnically diverse. It's just a different level.
Yeah, we're in Tooele County, Utah.
In Tooele County, Utah. You know, I mean,
yeah,
it's the same. I work up in Idaho. It's the same thing.
Yeah,
up there, primarily Republican. You know, specific things that you don't see it as much. I would say it's not as prevalent. And in you guys' last podcast, I heard something interesting when you guys were talking about reverse racism. And I'm trying to understand that to me is like really foreign. Is there a belief that you can't have people that have color be racist towards someone that's white? Is that the idea? Or how does that work?
He's coming back.
Because I don't understand that. To me, that doesn't make any sense. I would say
I'm stammering at this moment. Like, that's not what I got.
You could be racist against any race.
Yes.
Whether you have some color or not. If that makes sense. I don't know if there's like this reverse racism where people believe that you can't be a person of color that's racist towards white people.
What are we?
That threw me. That wasn't my interpretation, so I'm trying to like wrap my head. We talked
like
about reverse
discrimination,
how black people are racist against white people.
Yeah, and that was my question: is there a belief that, like, out there that there can't be people that have color in their skin that can be racist against white people?
Absolutely not. I don't think so at all. I think that everybody has. I mean, I think the problem is language and verbiage. We have a hard time with that, and people get stuck on things. And if we think of racism, the very first thing, at least in my mind, that comes to mind is the KKK. It comes to white supremacy. It comes to white people persecuting black people. That's what I think of as a racist. And then it kind of extends outwards where there's white people that are racist towards Mexicans, right? I'm a Mexican. I'm a half-breed. My dad's completely Mexican. His side of his family's all Mexican. I'm half, right? So I got a little bit of white. Well, I got half white, half Mexican. And go ahead, babe.
No, I'm still, keep going. I'm just trying to understand, because that didn't quite.
Well, that's what I'm trying to understand, because I was thrown for a loop too. I was trying to figure out where that was coming from.
So, like, if I'm understanding correctly, if you're a person of color, you are reverse racism. What you were looking at is if you were racist against white people. Is that what you were saying?
And I think it was just,
or that was your interpretation of what we said?
Well, it was just, I don't think you guys had talked about it. I think you guys said you were going to talk about it.
Okay.
In one of your next episodes, you're going to talk about that specifically, like.
I tried recently.
I can't freaking remember.
We recently, because we've been recording a lot of episodes lately, and not all of them have been released yet. This is going to be episode something or another, and we just released episode 200.
Yeah.
Not long ago. So
is that the one? Was it just him and I?
No, you had the young ladies from Salt Lake out here.
Okay.
And it was towards the very end, and I was just listening, and I was sitting here thinking, is that a real thing? Did I not get the memo?
So one of the things that I have been thinking about, and the guy that was on he came out last week and was on the show. I was trying to express this concept, or it's not that he couldn't understand. I was doing a terrible job explaining it, but the idea that in my mind, so Craig's brain, I have white privilege. I have white ignorance. I see things and respond and react to them because I'm white. And the example that I gave him at the time was, I was a passenger in a car. We pulled up to another car. In the car that was next to us, there were two black kids in it, two black teenagers, right? And I looked over, like everybody kind of has a tendency to do when you stop at a stoplight. You look at the cars next to you. I looked over and I see that there's two black kids. I look back, I look straight, and then the next thought in my head was gun. So then I looked back again to look at them again and assess the situation. And as we pulled away, I realized, fuck, that is my white ignorance. That is the programming that exists in this country from the beginning of the country, from the founding of the country, in my mind, that we as white people need to take a second look at black people. We as white people need to look at them and say, oh, wait a minute. I have to assess this situation for danger, right? Yeah. So that, in my mind, was an example for me personally of that thing that exists in this country that I am fully participating in and experience and do as a white man. And that, I think, is part of the fucking problem, is that we have that. I have that. I think that's part of the problem. And that's not from my upbringing, I don't think. I think it's a conglomeration of a bunch of different things, but the idea that white people need to be afraid of black people, or that we need to take a second glance, or that we need to, look at them any different than we do white people. Mm-hmm. And so as I've sat and thought about not just that experience, but tried to look at different experiences and different thoughts that crossed my mind, or the ways, another thing that stood out to me when we started to try to find people to come on the podcast and talk about all of this, we realized that we didn't have any really black friends, right? Which sucks. And it is what it is. But so then I start researching, and I go to the Black Lives Matter website for Utah, and I start scrolling through their website, and they have a whole page of black businesses and black business owners and things like that. So I think, well, that's a good place to start. So I start scrolling through that to try to find people. And I found people on there that I skipped over and I didn't reach out to, and I didn't want to talk to them because in my mind, they were too militant. So I have this concept and idea around like black militant people, or people that are like the Black Panther movement, mm-hmm. where you had Martin Luther King, who was all about nonviolence, and then you had the Black Panther movement that in my mind was more militant, more Malcolm mm-hmm. X, more, right? But that's programming. I wasn't alive in the fucking 60s, right? That's movies, that's things that I picked up, that's, culture and society. So I skipped over people because in my mind, they were too militant, and I didn't want to try to talk to them on the podcast because I worried that I would offend them more. I would worry that they would be too, adversarial, and I don't want to be adversarial, mm-hmm. and I don't want to fight and argue, right? Yeah. So that's my white fucking privilege. So roundabout way, what I'm talking about is I think black people have that in regards to white people as well. Mm-hmm. I think that they have that subtle programming that runs through their head in regards to growing up in this country black in mm-hmm. relation to white people. So when they look at white people, there's something that runs through their head. Or if they see a white person maybe that has a Confederate bumper sticker on their truck and a rifle in the back of their car, they take a second look and they start processing things differently. Mm-hmm. And sometimes I think it's justified and there's absolutely nothing wrong with it. But maybe that's what you're talking about, where they're racist on the flip side. And I don't think it's racism. I think it's programming and ignorance, right? I don't think I'm a racist, but I think I have programming from growing up in this country that is based on racism. Mm-hmm. So if we think about it from like the purely like a coding thing, a program, if somebody's going to sit down and write a program, like a computer program, and they're going to base it off of their understanding of the way the world works. And if they're a racist, they're going to base that program off of their racist fucking ideas and thoughts. And I think our programming in this country was written by a bunch of fucking racists, mm-hmm. because that's the way that the world worked back then, right? Mm-hmm. So we all are susceptible and have that programming. All people, whether you're black or white or Hispanic mm-hmm. or Asian or whatever the case may be. And it's not to say that everybody has to suddenly start looking at things through those lenses in order for us all to be on the same page. I have no problem at all if black people don't want to fucking look at that, because they're not the majority. Mm-hmm. The truth of the matter is the majority of the people in this country are fucking white. Mm-hmm. And we control everything.
Yeah.
Go ahead, babe. I feel like I triggered you.
Well, you didn't trigger me. I'm still just not...
That was a big rant.
It was a big rant. I don't want to... just throw out some empty words.
Keep in mind, I came back from the bathroom. I don't know what the fuck we were talking about.
I still don't understand.
We were talking,
I still don't. You said the reverse racism. And I'm ashamed that I can barely remember that conversation. So I don't remember. I don't know what your point, so was it Black people racist or prejudiced against white people? Because I think Corey's confusion on that is now also my confusion. So I want to speak to it, but I don't know what I'm speaking to.
Yeah, like the clarification, because you guys hadn't talked about it yet. You were just alluding to wanting to tackle that in the future.
Well, how are we doing?
And that we still have a great big question mark.
A little bit.
Because I was like going, I must have missed the boat. I don't know what we're talking about. But I know the most humbling thing for me with what you're talking about. And it's definitely changed me. I've been to Guatemala 3 times. My wife and I do medical missions down there. We fly down, stay for a week. You basically fly down there to work on your vacation. But you go down there and work, and you are 100% the minority. And if you've never been the minority, I would say switch roles, go somewhere where you do not speak the language. You're now the person who can't communicate, who's having a hard time getting around, can't find the fucking bathroom. And everyone else is the same color, and you're the different person. And it's like triple for me because I'm a half-breed and I got tattoos. So I'm like really, really stand out. And it's very humbling. And it definitely gives you that different set of eyes. Like you said, you caught yourself in the middle of that, acknowledged it. And you're like, why do I do that? And I think we all do that. We're all, at least in this area, we're all guilty of that. But I find myself less and less doing that because I threw myself. I got out of my comfort zone and went there, and I became the minority. And you find yourself submerged in really cool culture, learning amazing things, meeting great people. We got to hang out with the fire department down there. And they kind of just took us under their wings. But a huge, huge, great experience. Huge. Like, we didn't have anybody bad to us at all. Like, they were welcoming. They loved us. They were great to us. You know, so I'll get off the soapbox.
Oh, it's a good soapbox. For people that don't have the resources or the skills to where they can do something like that, because it's pretty great that you guys did that. But where we can start is just getting curious, like you. I love your curiosity, but getting curious and being willing to start to dig in and do research and take the step to look at Black Lives Matter, look at what's happened with the Hispanic community, with the Native community, and just see how much oppression is actually happening. Mm-hmm. Get curious about their experience, not your interpretation and what you've learned that their experience is. Just like wipe your for somebody else clean and just read it with open eyes. And you can find that information. I realize it's not accessible for everybody, but it's pretty much accessible for everybody. So there's nothing to stop you from going and diving into that and educating yourself a little bit more. And if you get the chance to go to Guatemala and do something amazing like that, that's what I'm doing at this point. I can dive in and I can sign up for things, and it's one rabbit hole after another, and just continue to educate myself the best I can, and then not pretend to have answers that I really don't have. Just sit back, I don't know what that means.
I'll give you an example of what I've been doing. And I'm just now piecing it together as you're speaking about this, babe.
Okay.
I am now seeing Black people, whereas before I didn't see them. And I think what I used to tell myself in my head was I didn't see them because it didn't matter to me, right? I feel that. I believe that. I feel that I didn't look at anybody different because of the base or the color of their skin. So that's what I believe, or I used to believe. But now what I'm doing, and when I'm out and about, whether it's running downtown or it doesn't matter where I'm going, right? With the when I'm not in our house, because we only have white people that live in our house, I am now looking for Black people and seeing them. And when I see them, I just see them. Like I pulled out a Del Taco the other day, and the truck driver that had just gone in to get his food and was walking back to his truck, and I drive past him, was a Black guy. So I see him and I kind of acknowledge, and I say, I don't like say hi or roll down the window or anything. I just kind of give him the, generic hello, wave, nod, and acknowledgement.
The caveman grunt.
Not caveman grunting. But I realized recently that I am seeing Black people more.
Good.
Right? Good. It makes me feel shitty to say that. It makes me feel like I'm a racist piece of shit that didn't see Black people, or was so ignorant to think that I'm colorblind. I don't see color. And that's not true. But what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to see them more And not just in the sense of like, you know, I'm so white privileged that I don't see anything, or that I only look at white people and I don't think about other races. That's not the case. I'm just trying to be more aware of them in society. And when I see them, I think about their life. I think about what their experience is. I think about what's going on for them. The other day, I saw somebody here in our tiny little podunk town down there at our nice little tiny podunk Piggly Wiggly fucking grocery store. And it was an interracial couple. It was a white man and a black woman. And the white man was missing a leg. He had a prosthetic. And they had some kids with them. And I mean, I probably would have not recognized, but I probably would have seen him because of his prosthetic. But also just the fact that it looked like they had an interracial relationship. So as I saw them at the store, my mind just went to like what their life would be like, what it would be like to be an interracial couple living in this small town, right? Not to mention the fact that the guy had a prosthetic. What would that be like? I was just trying to see, envision, and imagine their life experiences. And so that's what I've been trying to do more of. And I realize that I'm starting to do it more and more and more. And I think that's huge. I think that's a good thing, right? And right now it's focused on Black people. But I think that my hope is that I continue to expand it, because the truth of the matter is I don't have any Native American friends. I don't have any Asian friends.
Right here, bud.
Yeah.
you do now.
I got a half-breed Native American
There you
friend.
go. There you go.
But we are so isolated, sweetheart, in our nice little white community with all my white fucking friends, right? And I mean, part of it's the fact that we grow up in this fucking state that is predominantly fucking white people, right? So I'm not necessarily saying I'm to blame by any means, but it's also because I'm not looking for anything else. And it's not out of racism or out of being an asshole or out of being a jerk, right? It's just, it's what you look for. It's what you're looking at. I realized the other day too how silly this was. I was scrolling through fucking Instagram for the 800th time that day, and I realized, fuck, I don't follow a lot of Black people. The people that I follow that are Black are like the famous Black people, like Will Smith, right? I don't follow like regular, I don't even know. I feel so silly talking like this, but I realized that my feed is white. My social media feed is white. Yeah. And granted, it's been flooded with a lot of color in the last month, month and a half, rightfully so. But the truth of the matter is, I haven't gone and really liked any of those accounts or followed any of those people, right? I watched Trevor Noah. That doesn't make me some fucking saint as a white person.
I have a question for you. I'm going to stop your ramble.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
So you're starting to see, you're opening in your eyes and realizing, because I was guilty of the same. Like I don't see color because I'm not racist, and everybody, like, I'm going to treat everybody like a human. I didn't realize how damaging I was, and we've hit that. So to kind of join that with you, however, I can think of maybe one other time, at least on this podcast, and this being one of them, where you have acknowledged your own, the fact that you're Hispanic, that you're half, and you whitewash yourself. So
right,
when you're like, have you dove into what your experience is that you yourself have pushed out anything other than white? I mean, like, yeah, that's there, but that's not how I was raised. I'm in Grantsville. I'm a white guy. You keep saying I'm a white guy. I'm a white guy. I'm a white guy. I'm a white guy.
That's such a fucking good like recognition there, sweetheart. So programming in this fucking country has made me not acknowledge and outwardly express the fact that my fucking ancestors are Hispanic. Mm-hmm. I have fucking Mexican blood running through me, right? Mm-hmm. Like, I come from a long line of Mexicans. I have no doubt that go back to like Mayan and Aztec fucking times, right? And I don't acknowledge it in any way, shape, or form. And I think whitewashing is I think that's a good fucking word. I think the truth of the matter is, because I grew up in this fucking tiny little town, in this white fucking neighborhood, in this white fucking state, in this white fucking country, I don't acknowledge that. And the way that I've justified it in my head is, well, the truth of the matter is we didn't really grow up that way.
Yeah.
Right? My dad's Mexican, but it wasn't like we had, stereotypical Mexican things going on all the time. And I wasn't surrounded by my big Mexican family. And so in my mind, it's just, but I guarantee you're right that a part of the reason why I haven't done that is because of it's safer to be white, and white is the norm, and I want to fit in, right? Imagine if I spoke Spanish. I wouldn't fucking fit in fucking Podunk Grantsville, right? I wouldn't, because there weren't any kids that spoke. I remember the fucking Mexicans that came in and spoke Spanish. They didn't fucking fit in. I remember Felipe, and literally that was his name. I'm not just using a racial fucking stereotype. I remember Felipe in 6th grade when he came to school, and he barely spoke fucking English. He stuck out like a sore fucking thumb, right? So you're right. That sucks.
Yeah. It was the same way for me. Growing up in Magna. I mean, my dad's side of the family's native from New York, and then my mom was from Bountiful and who knows where. She's totally white. And it's the same thing. It's just, especially as a kid, you take the path of least resistance. You don't want to stick out. You don't want to be the odd man out. Like if I would have started speaking Seneca, it would have been bad.
So what is your dad?
He's Seneca from New York.
What is Seneca?
So,
that's our ignorance here.
Iroquois in New York. They called it the Western Door. So when you look at New York, like if you had the U.S. and here's New York, that little western edge before the settlers went through, that's where they held it. And there was like 6 different clans. It's the Iroquois group, and Seneca was one of those. So they kind of held off the Plains Indians from coming in. But yeah, it totally speaks to that point. And it's not that you're doing it on purpose. I know you've never sat there and been like, I can't talk about these things because whatever, because nothing's going to happen, but
it's subconscious,
it's
right?
subconscious, and you kind of do it to yourself.
Yeah.
And you don't even realize you're doing it. Like I've done it my whole life, probably. It's not what I lead off with when I talk to somebody, It's pretty crazy.
It is crazy. I had never thought of it that way, babe. Good on you, sweetheart.
I always thought whitewashing was like, in the wintertime with the snow on your face. But now it's a totally different thing.
How much do you get to embrace? All of you.
What do you mean?
Well, you were just saying that that's how it's been for you too, like growing up in Magna. And that
Magna's a weird place, man.
I don't know.
Well, for people listening, Salt Lake City is the big city in Utah, and Magna is a suburb of Salt Lake City.
Yeah, if you were going to put an enema into Salt Lake, it would go in Magna.
It
would
go through Magna.
All right.
Yeah. No,
All right.
It was kind of a weird mix growing up. We had little gangbangers. We had people bringing guns to school. We had a bunch of cowboy hicks. I was always hanging out with the skaters and the whoever. You just had all these different groups. And I think it's kind of the same at most high schools. You have different cliques, but.
Were you a straight edger?
No.
Okay.
No, I got beat up by straight edgers.
Did you?
Yeah, for sure. All those memories of trauma. So good. But it wouldn't be that like I was hiding anything. I would kind of tell people if we talked about it, but it was never something you lead out with. I was fortunate enough, my parents never forced me to be baptized into any religion. They never pushed me in any certain religion. And my dad was open and taught me about, he calls it the old ways. That's just what he's always called it, the old ways. But it's just that the traditions from the res in New York. So I was fortunate to get exposed to a lot of different things, but it helped me have open eyes to other religion, other things.
Did your dad grow up on a reservation?
He did, in New York.
Fuck, Corey. I mean, that's a big fucking deal, man.
Well, I don't lead out with that either, we were talking about all kinds of other stuff.
Yeah.
He actually grew up in New York, and then was put into an Indian boarding school where they cut your hair, change your name. That's why my last name is Jones. That's why my last name is Jones. That's a very white American name.
Yeah,
like
yeah.
Smith. I might as well be Smith right now. Change their names. In that boarding school, everything's very, very staunch Catholic. And then he ended up moving out here and living with his aunt who had moved out here to get away from an abusive husband. She moved out here, he followed, and she got very deep into the LDS faith. He ended up living with another family through high school. And that was when he met my mom and, stayed here. Pretty crazy.
So one of the things that we touched on a little bit earlier, and we've talked about it a lot on the podcast lately to some degree, and it's something that hopefully one day we'll be able to like really pick apart. But it's this idea, who's banging on something?
I'm sorry.
Is
It's
that you,
probably
baby?
me because I'm just over here. I'm sitting over here with my white ass and I'm talking to you like, I think everybody can be like, what the fuck? Okay.
No, we've been talking
No better,
about...
do better. Jesus.
We've been talking a lot about epigenetics.
It is what it is. Sorry. I think I just broke her.
It
That
is what
went
it
straight
is.
up my nose.
Yeah, you never know, right?
Oh my God.
You never know.
Have you ever heard of
All
that
right,
term
all right.
before, epigenetics?
Yes.
Okay. So you kind of understand what I'm talking about when I reference it. It's a whole big concept and idea that I don't even really truly grasp to the fullest extent. And I feel ignorant when I talk about it. But in my understanding of it, in regards to, basically it's the idea of what your parents, your grandparents, your great-grandparents, basically your ancestors, you have a long line of ancestors, and everything that they experienced in some regards is encoded in one way, shape, or form in your DNA to some extent, and basically passed down generationally from like the smallest little things of the things that we acknowledge and recognize, right? Like I can make Mexican food because my Nana made Mexican food and she was taught by her parent, her mother and things like that. But also I have epigenetic imprinting that has taken place because of my lineage, right?
Mm-hmm.
So from your perspective, if your dad grew up on a reservation and went through those experiences and then came from a Native American background who was like the original fucking persecuted race on this continent.
I think the Jews would argue with you.
On this continent.
Oh, okay.
Okay. On North America.
I was going to say, oh, you have a scrap on your hands.
But what do you think? Do you have any contextual experience or idea about how that has played out for you in your present day life?
I have a unique view on this because, my dad came from a reservation. He saw firsthand how it was there. But I didn't grow up there. I didn't live through all of that. So I don't kind of come at it with the idea that someone owes me something. Anybody owes me an apology, or you know what I mean? Like I don't hold that against you. You didn't do it, It's just something I think we need to remember. These things happened. We need to acknowledge it, just like you're saying right now with all the racism in the country. 90% of the problem is admitting you have a problem. We got to admit we got a problem. Then we can start tackling it. But with my dad, he would tell us stories. He left. I used to get beat up in the boarding school. Bad. There was like gangs in there. That's why he took off.
So think about it this way, Corey. Your dad from an early age had those experiences, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the trauma and the like the neural pathways that develop in the brain, the chemical and biological things that your body goes through during those experiences and during trauma made up your dad's inner workings, right?
Mm-hmm.
His inner processes, everything that took place within his body, his chemical dopamine, all these different things that took place, right? Because of those experiences
Mm-hmm.
that he went through, on top of the experiences that he was told about,
Mm-hmm.
saw and witnessed as a child, and his parents shared with him, or maybe his grandparents shared with him, or whatever the case may be, right? So now your dad has a makeup,
Mm-hmm.
and then he makes you. And some part of that makeup is now imprinted and passed down onto you, right? I think from my understanding of epigenetics, that's the idea, is that compounding effect of shit carries on. And
Mm-hmm.
so I don't even know if I have any contextual. We watched
Generational trauma.
Generational trauma is a good way to put it, babe. Yeah. Do you have any? I think I think we are naive as people to sit here. It's like a cop that thinks, I don't have any fucking issue with trauma. Fuck off. You don't have any fucking issue with trauma. And I think we as a race and people just in general, everybody is going to have generational trauma. It just has to be that way.
Yeah, but I agree. I agree. However, there's
worse cases, right?
There's worse cases, and there's also of how close is it starting to dilute? Because the theory of the epigenetics is that it is like attached on your DNA and it's coming through, but it doesn't change your DNA. And so after so many, that those things can start to fall off.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of don't believe it's going to fall off, but then there's people that also debunk epigenetics. They say that that's not a real thing, and I think that's crap. I believe it.
Like the stuff with what you're talking about, the stuff that I'm halfway familiar with is talking a lot about in utero, that development, that period from the time the egg is fertilized through birth. All the experiences that the mother has in one way or another are passed on to that child through the stresses, whether you're getting beat and you are scared, fear. A big one is like starvation. If you don't have food, you're going to tell that fetus, you better hang on to every calorie because you're going to need it. So that baby might come out, there might be plenty of food. That baby's going to be fat because those switches are flipped off and on. So who knows if it falls off at some point. I hate that we have science right now that you can have one scientist say one thing and one say another. That's not how science is. That's money influencing science. But anyways, yeah. But I totally see that. You see that all the time. The classic is the victim. If you're abused, you're going to either become a victim or an abuser. And it's the science is there. I mean, it's statistics. You are going to go down that path unless you get counseling, unless you reach out and get help and change something. It's huge. It's huge.
Do you think it's just in utero, or do you see it coming from the paternal side as well as the maternal?
I could see it coming from the paternal for certain things.
For certain things?
I think for certain things. I think because you've already mapped out like the cancer genes. Those are there. But a lot of it's like a light switch. Either it's flipped off or it's flipped on. Yeah. You're flipping them off and on. So I think it's the environment mixed with these things. You can be predisposed to hypertension, but if you live a certain type of lifestyle, you're never going to get it, even though you were predisposed. Does that make sense? Like you can be predisposed to have any other different medical problem, but if you manage your life a certain way, you'll never see it. It can happen.
Yeah.
Well, Corey, we can't thank you enough for coming and sitting down on our little podcast, man. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
We appreciate it immensely. It's so funny how hard it is for people it's really hard to convince people to come and sit down and talk on the podcast.
Why?
I have no idea. I mean, I guess I do kind of understand to some extent, but you fucking killed it, man. You did great. It's not hard, right? We just sit down and have a conversation.
We'll see. You're going to get some comments later.
No, it's all good, man. But before we wrap up, is there anything you want to throw out or anything like that?
No, it was fun. It was really good to come out. I like hearing the different point of view.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
different thoughts.
Man. I appreciate it.
Yeah, for sure.
Thank you.